Hey, what is up YouTube? Small here, and I'm back for another video, and it's been a little bit, but it's because I've been playing a game called Lies of P. This is a game by NeoWiz, which is a South Korean company, and they have been taking their stab at the Souls-like genre. Um, One of the things that, a lot of people have to really ask, and you have to ask yourself is this a Souls-like, or is this actually a Souls clone? Um, I'm in the group that actually would consider this more of a Souls clone. I have played many games that would be classified as Souls likes, but they are all still very different. They just kind of keep a lot of the core things that make the FromSoft Souls games of that genre. But Lies of P is very, very similar to, say, Bloodborne with mechanics of Sekiro and the Dark Souls games. Or Elden Ring, etc. Pretty much any of the FromSoft games. Some of the things in Lies of P are one-to-one or pretty darn close, to the point that if you said this game was made by FromSoft and just kind of like cleaned up in certain areas to have a little bit more of their stuff, in which we can talk about a little bit later, I would believe you. It's that similar. I would say this is a Souls clone instead of a Souls-like. Now, is that a bad thing? Now that's the real question, right? Is this game plagiarizing? Is it just straight up copying? Or is it paying homage? Is it a love letter to those games because it loves those games so much? I am in the latter camp. I believe this game pays homage. It is a love letter to those games. I think this game does an exceptional job at paying homage to all the Souls FromSoft games while still maintaining some elements of its own uniqueness. Even if 90+% of the game is a FromSoft game, essentially. But now that, we've kind of gotten that out of the way, and again, this is my opinion. One of my best friends completely disagrees with me on this, and that's okay. But that's my opinion. Now let's go ahead and break down the game itself. It took me about 50 hours to beat this game on my first playthrough, which is significantly longer than everybody I know who's beaten this game. Most people I know beat this game in under 30. It took me about 50, and that was post-nerf on the post-nerf patch. Let's first talk about the gameplay. The gameplay itself is essentially a FromSoft Souls game. Aesthetically, this game looks and feels more like Bloodborne, but if you play it, it definitely plays slower. I would say it plays more akin to Dark Souls. Maybe even more Demon Souls, because Demon Souls is even a little bit more weighty than Dark Souls. And it kind of incorporates the perfect guard mechanic. It's pretty similar to the parry mechanic from Sekiro, but it's not quite the same thing. It's a little bit different. But it's essentially kind of the same thing. Gameplay smooth, gameplay feels great. I have never once really felt like, I don't know, it was jank or anything. I felt like the gameplay was perfectly fine, perfectly serviceable. I felt like I was playing a FromSoft Souls game when it comes to the gameplay. Now we can kind of move into the mechanics of maybe like certain things that kind of differentiate it a little bit. The number one thing is the weapon system. Specifically, the regular weapons. With the regular weapons in this game, you can break them into two parts, the blade and the hilt, and you can essentially mix and match all blades and hilts in the game of normal weapons. Boss weapons are exempt from this, unfortunately, but boss weapons are pretty unique already on their own, so that kind of makes sense. Otherwise, mechanics is pretty similar to Souls. You get this stuff called Ergo, which is Souls. You use it just like Souls. You drop it upon death, just like Souls. Difference being, if you drop it on death and then you die again, you still don't lose it. Instead, you lose your Ergo when you get hit. So let's say you drop your Ergo because you died at a boss, and then you're running to the boss, and you get hit by mobs along the way. Then your Ergo disappears. Not all of it, but you will lose some over time. Like each time you get hit, you will lose some of your Ergo. I think it's a different way to I don't know, a different take on a similar mechanic. I think it's fine, totally serviceable. Never did I really feel like it was hindering me in any way, but I still felt bad if I died multiple times trying to get my souls or my ergo. So, I don't know. It felt essentially the same. The biggest change that I think when it comes to death that I really, really enjoyed in this game, and I actually think hopefully future games do follow this pattern, is that when you die to a boss, instead of your currency, we'll just say, dropping in the boss room, it'll drop outside the boss room, so you can always collect it, which is really, really nice. So there's essentially no reason you should have you should not have your souls shouldn't be spent, essentially, or your ergo. World and environments, storytelling, world storytelling, etc. In this game, I think it's very similar to the FromSoft games, but it's a little more direct, which I think is a good thing, because for a lot of people, the FromSoft games, Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro is a little bit different, but Elden Ring falls into this category as well, is that a lot of the game's lore, if you don't look for it, you ain't gonna know what it is, right? You have to, like, actually look for the story. It's not gonna just get told to you. You'll get told some things, and then you just might be like, I have no idea what the heck's going on. In Lies of P, the game's story is very much front and center, but it's still told in the same ways as like the Souls games. So it still has that feel. It's just that you're not going to really miss much. You definitely still can miss some things if you don't go out of your way to read the extra content that's there. But even if you don't and you just talk to the NPCs, listen to all the dialogue in the game, you'll pretty much understand the whole game. And I think that's fine. I think that works perfectly well, especially because the game is very linear. Unlike the FromSoft games, this game is very, very linear. You go from point A to point B to point C, C to D, etc. until you beat the game. Now, there might be some branch offs to go do a little bit of side stuff in each branch, so to speak, but all in all, it's not like I can go from point A to point C, skip B, and then come back to do B. I have to do B to do C. I have to do C to get the D, etc. I can't jump around. Whereas like in the Souls games, you can definitely do that. You don't have to necessarily do things in an exact order. And because the game is linear, I think it works very well with the story being a little bit more narratively driven and told to the player. So I like it. Let's talk bosses, and we'll include mini bosses and elite mobs in this. The bosses in this game are very hit and miss in terms of difficulty. Some of the bosses I found were exceptionally easy, and some of the bosses I found were exceptionally difficult. But one thing I can say for sure is that the elite mobs in this game were all difficult. All of the elite mobs are very, very difficult in this game. They will mess you up, essentially. Some of them are very, very brutal, to the point that I would say that they're more difficult than some of the easier bosses. There's a fair amount of mini bosses. Most of them aren't too difficult, but enough to give a challenge. Makes sense that they have a like a boss bar kind of deal. And then the regular mobs, regular trash type mobs, for the most part, aren't too difficult. Certain mob types are a little more difficult than others, but it's, they're there. It's the elite mobs you got to worry about. Now, in terms of bosses being cool, right, like that's one of the cool things about all the FromSoft games is the bosses being cool. Are the bosses, do they have a certain flair? Are they memorable? There are some bosses in this game that are absolutely cool, absolutely memorable. People are going to be talking about for a long time, I think. And yeah, I think they're up there with the Souls in FromSoft games for sure, which is really, really awesome. NPC characters, for the most part, I think they were all serviceable. Some of them were pretty cool. Some of them, yeah, they got the job done. So hopefully with future installments from this developer for future games that they make, you know, more and more of the NPCs and characters in the game will kind of, a higher percentage of them will be on the cool side, or, you know, or like these are really interesting characters rather than just being serviceable just to get the job done. The sound and the music in this game, I think, is actually phenomenal. That being said, though, they took all their cues from the FromSoft games. You know, the majority of the time throughout the game world, there's very little music, very little ambiance music, just the world sounds. But when you're fighting bosses, when you're in the hub, very, very nice music. It's very fitting to the setting and all of that. Hopefully this video has, you know, I try to be very spoiler free and do everything I can. And I'm also doing a little bit differently. This time I'm doing audio over another video, a video that I've edited. So hopefully it's all right. Let me know down in the comments below, and yeah, like and subscribe. And I am going to be doing more videos. Yeah, Lies of P is great. It's on Game Pass if you have Game Pass. Otherwise, I still think the game is absolutely worth the price. If you are a FromSoft fan, you're gonna love this game. Alrighty, thanks guys.